Welcome to the Candidates Debate on Civil Liberties, brought to you by the Redwood chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, defending the civil rights of the people on California's North Coast. The candidates for 1st District Supervisor of Humboldt County are Rex Bone, Annette de Modena, and Cheryl Seidner. And after their opening statements and their answers to questions concerning civil liberties for local residents in Humboldt County, they will take your questions phoned in to 707-336-2258, Twitter and Facebook Redwood ACLU, and emailed to redwoodaclu@hotmail.com. This debate is brought to you thanks to Access Humboldt, the Humboldt Sentinel, and is sponsored by the Redwood chapter of the ACLU. Now, here's your moderator, Christina Albright.
The format of the debate will be 2-minute opening statements by each candidate. We will have pre-written questions on civil liberties issues for the candidates to answer first, with all remaining questions originating from a live call-in number for the public to request questions to be asked of the candidates. Candidates will have 2 minutes to reply to each question, although they are encouraged to keep their answers to the point. Candidates will also be given the opportunity to make 1-minute rebuttal statements, but no more than once per question. Lastly, each candidate will be able to give closing statements of up to 2 minutes. Let us begin with Rex Bone. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Good evening, and I want to thank the Redwood chapter of the ACLU and the Humboldt Sentinel for putting this little forum together tonight. I'm running for the 1st District Supervisor because I think I have the availability, I have the opportunity, and I have the expertise to make a difference in Humboldt County. And I look forward to making that difference in Humboldt County. I have served the community for years, both in the private sector, both working in, for the public and the private sector, and for the nonprofit sector. So I look forward to working with Humboldt County. I look forward to working for the people of the 1st District and the people of Humboldt County. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Annette de Modena, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello, I am Annette de Modena, and I've lived in District 1 since 1978. I'm a retired educator. I had 28 years of experience, 24 years here at Zane Junior High. Since service has always been the key to my life's work, upon retiring, I joined the grand jury in 2010, 2011, and also the Sequoia Zoo Foundation Board, Keat Fundraising Committee, and others very service-oriented organizations. When I served on the grand jury, it was a great learning experience for me, and that, as a result of it, that's what made me make the decision to also decide to run for District 1 Supervisor. I spent the last year and a half or more meeting the people of District 1, attending the Board of Supervisor meetings regularly, as well as commission meetings, learning the issues and the policies that affect District 1 and Humboldt County. I am on 3 committees for Prosperity 2012, our economic strategic plan that aims to bring good jobs to Humboldt County and a greater market for Humboldt products. So with my background in education, in preparation, research, organization, and management, I can do the job of District 1 Supervisor. So come on board and let's make it happen together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Cheryl Seidner, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you very much, and it's good to be here this evening, and good to be here to let you know who I am, what I'm doing, and what I am seeking. I'm running for 1st District Supervisor, and my roots run deep in here in Humboldt County. I was born in the 1st District in Scotia, and I was raised at Table Bluff, the old reservation out at Table Bluff. My father was a timber faller and my mother a flayer. They worked hard, and in that they gave us the understanding of what we needed to do as we grow older, and those things my parents have done stay with me to this day. I went to school at Lolita Elementary, Fortuna High School, and then moved to San Francisco when I was 18 to attend Heald's College of Business for a year. When I came home, I worked for Humboldt County Schools, Indian Action Council, and then 28 years at Humboldt State University's EOP office, the Educational Opportunity Program, where I worked with students who were 1st-generation college students and low income, and I retired from Humboldt State, and I was bestowed upon me from the California State University an honorary doctorate. I've held an office, elected office for the Wiyot tribe as tribal chair for 12 years. I looked at this as a place where I have learned how to deal with government issues. We have road issues, housing issues, and things to this way. And I want to collaborate. We collaborated with the city of Eureka and Humboldt County, but we came back with a 60 plus acres of Indian Island, which was the Wiyot's sacred sites. And we couldn't have done that without the collaboration of all people. I love this county. I've been here. I was born and raised here. It's a place where I come.
Thank you. Our first question will go to Rex, and I will be using your first names from here on out.
Good.
The first question concerns a legislative prayer. What is your position on opening governmental meetings, such as meetings of the Board of Supervisors or Eureka City Council, with a religious prayer as an invocation?
I went all through Catholic schools here in Eureka, and some public schools. And in this day and time of the way things are going, I'm not so sure a little prayer and a little guidance along those lines is not a good way to start a meeting. It kind of brings focus in. I was invited recently by Sheriff Mike Downey to the prayer breakfast recently on the National Day of Prayer. And it's quite heartwarming, and it makes you think within a little bit about why you're here and what is actually going on. And it might not be a bad way to keep that sentiment going. Thank you.
Thank you. Annette?
Okay. Well, you know, Congress opens in prayer. So, and we used to have prayer in schools many years ago here I know in California, and I'm sure other places around the nation. And the history of our country has been one of a Christian faith background. And it's just not a bad idea, because I think we used to have religious studies, not religious studies, we used to be pulled out for an hour in order to participate in an activity of some sort as well. So in this day and age, it's a standard. At least it would be a standard for us to begin to build on, because right now I think there's just so much going on in terms of the confusion of who are we, and what do we know, what don't we know. That wouldn't be a bad idea to give the kids a good foundation, and adults too.
And Cheryl?
Coming from my background, from my religious background, from my tribal background, we have always made sure that prayer is in our home and when we open meetings and such. But as I also understand that our country was founded on a freedom of religion. And we need to make sure that freedom of religion is not just for one religion. It's the freedom of religion. It's for those who have come here and sought freedom here. We need to understand that we need to look at that. And if we are going to open up in prayer, then we need to make sure that everyone is covered. And I think we also have in our Constitution, it says separation of church and state. What I do in my private life is my private life, but when I do out in public, I also have opened up in prayer in different programs and things. I think it's necessary, but it says church and state must be separated.
Rex, do you have rebuttal?
No.
Annette?
What the Constitution says in the first of the bill, number 1 Bill of Rights, is that there will be no establishment of a religion. Just a second, let me read it here. And no laws respecting an establishment of religion. And if you go back into the history of the country, what that means, it has more to deal with the denominations of Christianity that came in who were suffering from persecution in Europe. And they didn't want one particular denomination of Christianity to dominate the belief systems of other of the denominations of Christianity. And as far as it being in the Constitution, it's not really in the Constitution. It was a letter that was written by Thomas Jefferson to a Baptist pastor when they were talking about taxes and separation of church and state.
Thank you. The next question will first go to Cheryl. From mid-November until the end of April, county staff, with the implicit support of a majority of the supervisors, closed the lawn of the county courthouse with a chain link fence. Do you support this 5.5-month closure of a traditional public speech venue? Why or why not?
I don't agree. Excuse me. I don't agree with the ordinance. I believe that freedom of speech, we can never compromise that. And I believe that we need to look at it. There are other places that we could have gone to make sure that people would not tread upon others' rights. I also think that we have those laws in order, and we need to look at those laws and make sure that those laws are upheld. But I don't know and I won't second guess the Board of Supervisors and what they were doing and what they had to deal with. But I fully believe that it is not the best thing to do, is to halt some parts of our freedom of speech.
Rex?
Freedom of speech, association, and assembly. It's in the Constitution. But with that being said, I've spent quite a bit of time. I go by there every morning, and I've spent quite a bit of time on the courthouse steps. I think we need to protect the rights of the people that are wanting to occupy to go into our county seat to do business. As of now, in a lot of places, what they're trying to address is the blocking of the steps, the blocking of the sidewalk. We've basically turned it into a homeless shelter. I've hit over 2,500 doors in the last few months, and it's one of the hot topics. What are you going to do about the front of the courthouse? With that being said, they need a place to assemble. They need a place to talk. They need to express their views. That is true. As far as the lawn was a safety issue and basically a winter issue because there was going to be a mud pit if they kept sleeping on it. I think it was not as much to keep them off of it for that reason as it was to keep them from camping on the grass and keeping such a problem there. We have a major problem that has to be addressed. I applaud the Board of Supervisors for addressing it. With that, there are quite a few laws already on the books that can be used for that. But we need to do something because the people of the community want it cleaned up. And what they want is a safe environment. They want somewhere where they can go to the county seat without being worried about it, without being harassed. I've seen numerous instances. And the amount of police calls and sheriff department calls that are involved out there are off the charts. So we need to come together. They have every right to be there, but we need to come to a common ground so they have a place to assemble, they have a place to say what they need to say, but it has to be a compromise between everybody involved so it is also safe for everybody that needs to use the courthouse.
Annette?
There were other problems as well as it being used as a homeless shelter, and that includes the defecation and urination that was happening on the lawns. This is a health issue as well. And we do have municipal laws that need to be followed. Even while we're protesting, we need to be responsible for what we're doing as well. So as much as I don't like the chain link fence, I don't like the breaking of the municipal laws and making it difficult for other people to access the county offices and be harassed on the streets and to see the filth, unfortunately, that is there. But I do. And also the other thing is the fact that other people, because of the way everything was being handled, they lost their freedom of speech, such as the women in black. They had no place to go to. So whether we agree or disagree with what happened with the chain link fence and beyond, something needed to be done. And now it's time to come together and let's talk about it a little bit more so we can start aligning ourselves with the behaviors that we need in order to get our points across well.
Cheryl, rebuttal?
I think also is that we worked with I sit on the Human Rights Commission, and with that we did talk with the employees of the county and working with them to work on a new way of going about doing this. And as I said, I don't condemn what the supervisors did, but I want to make sure that the Human Rights Commission is a part of the answer and a part of what we can do to make the solution happen.
Rex?
No, thank you.
And Annette?
No.
In late March, the Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 to pass that emergency ordinance that prohibits freestanding signs upon the county courthouse grounds, and that imposes a daily curfew on the courthouse grounds between 9:30 p.m. and 6 a.m. What is your position, although you've spoken to this a little bit, specifically on the ordinance and those particular facets of it? And first we'll go with Annette.
No one likes to see emergency ordinances put into effect because it means that there's something that's gone seriously wrong. And all of a sudden, I can't remember the last part of the question. Would you repeat it for me, please?
Sure. We're talking specifically about the daily curfew between 9:30 p.m. and 6 a.m., as well as the prohibition on signs.
Okay. The signs, once again, it really, I don't remember what they said, but the signs were hanging on the, I think the signs were hanging on the fence, and there were other signs there as well that were getting defaced. So again, one has to make a decision based on whatever it is that happens, and you needing to show that this kind of behavior is, even though you're exercising your rights, you are exercising your rights as a citizen, you still, you need to be more respectful too.
And Rex?
I believe the curfew was put in place to probably curb some of the overnight camping and sleeping, and some of the less law-abiding instances that were taking place. As for the signs, a lot of protests, when they protest, they would carry their signs, and it looks like now they've put them up on a fence. It creates a hazard because they blow down, they break, they create all sorts of things. And they don't look very good in front of our county seat. I mean, they are sometimes scrawled. Some of them are pretty blatantly obscene, and I think those have to be addressed because we have women and children and other people coming in and wanting to use the courthouse, and I don't know if they need to be subjected to that. So again, I think the supervisors are trying to address it as well as their constituents and the people of the county are asking them to, because I know they're getting bombarded with this, and I know this has been a tough thing for them to go through, but it has to be addressed so everybody involved is somewhere in the middle, meets somewhere where it works for everybody, a place to assemble, a place to speak, and a place to access your county.
Cheryl?
I think I just have a small comment. It's freedom without responsibility. We've got the freedom, but we can't have freedom without responsibility, and we have to take responsibility for our actions. And the fencing going up and the signs that were on the fence, we're mature adults, and we need to work with that, and we need to come together and work together and collaborate. And that's one of the things with the Human Rights Commission. That's what we would like to do and be a part of the solution.
Any rebuttal?
Well said.
Switching gears slightly, in 1996, the voters of California passed Proposition 215, the Compassionate Use Act, that allows for the use of marijuana for medical purposes. Do you support Prop 215, and how would you approach related policy decisions, such as the permitting of dispensaries? Cheryl? I'm sorry, that goes to Rex first, I apologize.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. With that, we have a 1,000-pound gorilla in the room with the federal laws. There are two laws. There's state laws and there are federal laws. The state law in 2006 was a Compassionate Act for glaucoma, cancer, AIDS, to promote appetite with a drug without any side effects. There is a lot of clinical research. I know it works. I also think it is a very abused law. And I think that's where the problems come up with this. And then what they've done is they've turned this into the compassionate use into a commercial growing situation, which has created a reputation for Humboldt County, one that we're not always proud of. It's a big part of our economy, but I really truly believe it has been a highly abused law from 2006, and my biggest fear is the feds are going to come in and crack down even more than they've already cracked down. I think they've spoken quite loudly in the last few months as far as it goes to dispensaries.
Cheryl?
We have a law on the books, and implementing the position or the proposition of 215, and they have the 215 card. And I understand why they call it compassionate, and I look at it and realize there are people who are really needing it, but there are also other ways of dispensing this. It's not always in tobacco form. It's in lozenges, it's in pill form, and it's helping those who are very ill and who are maybe dying. And I think we need to be, the patients need to have access to this medical marijuana, and to have the doctors be able to prescribe it. And for those who need it, it's not, not to be abused. Again, we go back to freedom without responsibilities. We need to have those responsibilities, and we need to be mature about what we're doing.
Annette?
I too am very supportive of the concept of compassionate use of marijuana product, because I have a friend whose mother was down to 87 pounds in stage 4 cancer, and by the time her son was able to get that marijuana for her, she ended up living another 5 years and was 125 pounds instead. And so she was able to enjoy her life. So I'm 100% in favor of the marijuana use law. The problem comes with the fact that the federal government, however, needs to review their laws, because they're the ones who are stopping us from making progress in this area. And we cannot do anything until they do, because we are always going to find ourselves in jeopardy when the feds can always come in, because it's in the Constitution. The federal laws go before the state laws, which go before the municipal laws, and so forth. So we need to get the feds on board.
Rex, rebuttal?
None.
Cheryl?
No.
The next question will go first to Cheryl. California law establishes a statewide regulatory framework for the production and retail sale of raw, unpasteurized milk. Some consumers choose to drink raw milk because they believe it provides health benefits. Some government agencies, such as the Federal Center for Disease Control, claim that raw milk contains harmful bacteria that can cause sickness. Humboldt County is one of only 3 counties in California that bans the sale of certified raw milk products. What is your position on raw milk sales in Humboldt County?
Well, I grew up milking our cow, and we drank raw milk all the time, and I didn't know what it was out of a carton until I was probably about 10, 12 years old, because we had our cow, we did it all, but I realized that that was a while ago. It's not today, and I know there's more things out there today that are prohibitive of good health. And I believe, I understand that raw milk can have some really bad influences on our physical being, for our children, which is, it's not going to be able to go backwards. And so we have to make sure that what we are giving our children is good. And I believe that we need to look at it more carefully, but I would say what I read and what I have been looking at is that I probably am not in favor of having raw milk at this time.
Annette?
It's funny that this question is asked, because it's probably one of the first questions. I was walking down a street one day, and I had just decided to run for office, and that was my question. He was asking me would I support raw milk. And if we're one of 3 counties left that's not supporting it, I have a question about that, number one. Number two, I have a question in terms of if it's done in, the person knows what they're buying, they have to take responsibility for what they're buying. And if it's done in a sterilized business area so that every precaution is taken, then it's up to the person who's purchasing it to make the decision as to whether or not they want it. And then they take their chances with it. Because I don't think that there's that much of a, personally, I don't think there's that much of a problem with the raw milk. But just wanted to make that caveat.
Rex?
With a wife who grew up on a dairy and had a dairy in their family, and still the family still, relatives still have a dairy. Again, it is a person's choice. There is raw milk available in a couple places in Humboldt County. If you read, there's two sides to the story. You read the one side and it could be terrible. You read the other side and it's good, wholesome, and it's natural. And what it comes down to is it does come down to a person's choice and the obligation that they want to, if they want to take it, they can. Again, I would be hesitant to be the one to say, okay, we should have it, and then have something forbid happen to a young child or an elderly person from the raw milk. So it's something that would have to be maybe more influenced and more looked into, and maybe decide on a whole basis. Again, like with only 3 counties, there has to be a good reason why we're not doing it, and maybe we need to further review that.
Any rebuttal?
No.
Annette, should the local Native American tribes be included in HCOG, the Humboldt County Association of Governments? Why or why not?
Okay, well, I believe that there has been some talk in regard to that about a representative coming from the tribal commission and serving on the board, and perhaps not being a voting member, but indeed serving on the board. So I would be perfectly in favor of it, because it's already been discussed.
Cheryl?
I believe the Native tribes need to be represented, and it's not represented from every tribe. It's 1 seat, and they should have a vote. We, especially when we're talking about a reservation that's very large, and they have county roads across those reservations. And I believe that we need to look at them, and again, it's collaboration, looking and talking to the cities, talking to the other people, and seeing where the problem is. And if there is a problem, let's look at the issue. Let's get to the meat of the issue and not say yes or no, but let's look at it and let's do it with thoughtful minds, because we're here, we're not going away, and we need to be a part of the decision making of this county.
Rex?
HCOG is in discussion with this as we speak, and I know they talked about an advisory member, 1 member from representing all the tribes. I know one of the things that they want to do is they want to make sure it's done on a level playing field, so the member, they are playing on the same level playing field that everyone is as far as campaign contributions, sales tax, and along those lines. With that being said, meeting the criteria that other government entities have to, I think the Indian population, Hupa, Trinidad, the Wiots, I think they do deserve a seat on the board, a representative on the board.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
No.
Rex?
Yes.
Should the county construct and provide public restrooms at 1 or more central locations in Humboldt County?
I have 2 public restrooms. Depending where they are and what they are used for, it has become probably one of the biggest cost expenses in Old Town is the vandalism that takes place in the Old Town bathrooms. So what we need to do is create a partnership where they're going, and I understand the Plaza and Arcata and certain other locations. The biggest problem we have, and what we have with any public facility, is vandalism, and the wherewithal to be able to curb that, so you can actually create a place for someone to go to the restroom, for somebody to wash up with dignity, and still keep it in working order without it becoming a basic money pit to the tax-paying citizens who aren't using it or who want to use it and can't because it's inoperable. So once they can get over those obstacles, I think it's probably something that could be looked at. Building them is the minor part of it. Maintaining them is probably the biggest expense, and I just know this firsthand from what the city of Eureka has had to go through.
Annette?
Well, I am total agreement, because the idea of public restrooms is a very, very good one. In fact, down in Ferndale, of course, they have a public restroom, and it's very well kept. But that's Ferndale. That's not Eureka with its problems. That's not Arcata with their problems, and I laud Arcata for trying. But the maintenance of these facilities is very difficult. I mean, I taught junior high, for heaven's sakes, for 24 years up here, and I can't tell you what sometimes those children would do to the restrooms. And to think that, and so as an adult, and adults using them, they have far more issues that they're dealing with when we're in these restrooms, and we don't know, if they're open and it's in the evening time, what kind of assaults can also happen in those restrooms. So it's hard to, you want to do it, but you have this concern about what's going to happen when you do to others, even not just the building, but to others.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Oh, this is a point of contention with me. I sit on the Human Rights Commission board, and I was working on the marshes down on the Eureka waterfront when at the end of the day, it was 5 o'clock, unbeknownst to me, I wanted to go wash up, and went down there, and the door was closed, it was locked, I couldn't get in. And then I went to the Adorning Center, and I wasn't allowed in because I wasn't a member. I don't live in Eureka, and so I had nowhere to wash up, nowhere to go to the bathroom. And so we have been talking about it at the Human Rights Commission, and I had seen a PBS show where people had bathrooms all throughout Europe, and it didn't cost, especially for men. But it just looked like I'm a citizen and I can't rest in a place where I should be able to, because the way I looked, I probably couldn't have gone into any other place because I was grubby and dirty, and they wouldn't have probably let me into a store. And so we need to look at it. I think John Shelter's program, working with his homeless group of men who can work with the county, work with the city, and make sure that we have the ability to clean that up and make sure it's secure for those people who are needing to go to the restroom after hours. And possibly we can work with it and collaborate together.
The moderator will take liberty to say that there are also women in John Shelter's program.
Yes.
So any rebuttal besides from me on that question?
Thank you very much.
Again, the maintenance is the issue, and of course, John's group, Teen Challenge, has been doing a great job in Old Town, working every day on very cost-effective. So you are right. We need to find somewhere, because otherwise people are relieving themselves in places that they don't need to be relieving themselves, and it puts people in an inconvenient situation, and it puts a lot of people in an uncomfortable situation, and so we need to address it. But financially, we have to find business partners or somebody to work that can get those places cleaned up and stop the vandalism so it's not a money pit.
Any rebuttal? I'll take this opportunity to remind viewers that if you have questions, please phone them in to the number on your TV screen. Should Occupy Humboldt be permitted to provide a portable restroom at the courthouse for use by Occupy protesters? Why or why not? Cheryl?
We wrestled with this with the Human Rights Commission, and there were times when people wanted to work with the county and talk with them and see what we can do to alleviate the eyesore that was out in front, and so that people would have dignity to go to the restroom. And I believe that we got to look at the laws and things, but I think we need to have some passion and compassion that people need to go and relieve themselves. We need to provide a place. Who would pay for that? I am not sure. but we would look at it and make sure that we work together to get it done.
And Annette?
Well, the Occupy Humboldt people can always use the, it's been stated in the Board of Supervisors that they can indeed use the restrooms in the courthouse. They just have to come in. And so that in itself is a way, at least until 6 o'clock or whatever, that people can use the facilities there. And I remember Mark Lovelace one time saying that because the question was, will you supply us? Will the Board of Supervisors, will the county supply us with the restroom facilities? And Mark brought up the fact that, Supervisor Lovelace brought up the fact that if they were to provide them, then it becomes an event which puts it under an entirely another situation, so that became impossible. Do we need public restrooms? Yes, we do. But again, where, how, and the facility and the finances to make it work is another story.
Rex?
Again, they do on a regular basis use the restroom downstairs at the county courthouse and on a regular basis. And again, when it is open for hours. So this may be where the curfew comes into play because there is no restroom available. I, for one, do not want to see a green B&B in front of the courthouse. There's enough camping and stuff going on the sidewalk. Now that they've moved off county property into the state right-of-way on the sidewalk at night to sleep, I think we have enough of a debacle going on there down, because when I go by there early in the morning, they're not talking to anybody. They're sleeping. They're doing other things. So if they're going to plan far enough ahead to occupy at night and insist on staying down there at night, they need to plan enough ahead, because this isn't an incident where you're walking down the street when you're shopping and say, I need to go to the bathroom. They are planning on being there. They need to make arrangements to maybe leave, get in their car, drive somewhere, go to the bathroom, and come back and do their free speech movement in front of the courthouse.
Thank you. Any rebuttal? Annette, who are the biggest donors to your campaign? What is your relationship with those donors?
My biggest donor is my friend Jean Gordon. She gave me $1,000. And then I have other donors as well who have given me various amounts of money. And then I have also helped finance my own campaign.
And Cheryl?
I had to make a note. My biggest donor at the present time is AFSCME. It's the Humboldt County Union, and working with the nurses and the health nurses and two road crews. So they have given me $1,500, and numerous $100 donors, and down to just small amounts. And we're grassroots, and we're always thankful for those who come and want to be a part of the campaign, and I just really appreciate them all.
Rex?
My biggest donor would probably be the Humboldt Deputy Sheriff's Department, whose endorsement I got, and who gave me a $5,000 donation to help me get my message out. With that, I have a local hardware store, family-owned hardware store, Ace Hardware in Henderson Center. Jack Rickey, who's been a personal friend of mine for 25 to 30 years back in the days. We go back a long ways. I've had in excess of 950 people donate to my campaign. I think I sent out 450 thank you cards. So it's that keeps me fairly busy in the evenings and things like that. I've been very humbled by the size of my donations. Their ability to give has all the way down to the senior citizen who gave me $1 who wanted to be part of my campaign because she felt it was important, to the larger donations, to the union monies that I've got, the working people that want to have jobs in Humboldt County. So I've been very humbled throughout this campaign by the amount of money we've been. We started raising money about 15 months ago when we got serious and we were going to get the message out. So we've had a couple very successful fundraisers where we've got together and been able to share ideas with a cross-section of people throughout the county. So I appreciated everybody that has donated to the campaign, and I hope you understand our message.
Thank you. Probably no rebuttal to that one. The next one is for Rex to begin with. What is your position on creating reasonable campaign contribution limits in county elections?
I know Measure T. I followed Measure T because one of my dearest friends in the world, Chris Crawford, was involved with that, and I know that it got shot down. Again, if everybody's on the same level playing field, I think it's something that we can look at. Again, I appreciate people donating to the campaign because they're donating to a campaign because they're donating to somebody that they believe in with a message that can provide something for them. So to limit them on what their amount they want to donate, I'm not sure if we can do that, but I would certainly be able to be part of a group that would look together to keep campaign costs under control.
Annette?
I'd be all in favor of some form of contribution limit, especially with PAC money as well, which is the another elephant in the room, because they tend to have big pockets and they fill them well, and then they fill the coffers of a few as well, and that is a bit. It makes it a little more difficult for grassroots campaigns to begin to compete.
Cheryl?
I think about that and look at it and realize that some people are not allowed, and I don't know if that's a poor choice of words, allowed to run for office because they don't have the money. And I believe that we live in an America where we should be able to run for any office with any amount of money, and just because someone has hundreds of thousands of dollars, whether it's in this campaign, the presidential campaign, we need to look at that and how we should be spending our money, and that money come in. It's a real responsibility to spend it wisely, and I think we need to look at that and make sure that anyone who wants to run for office is able to, not to be set aside and say you can't run because you don't have enough money. I believe we need to look at that, and we have some folks out there who probably should be running for office, but they can't because they don't have the funds. So I think we need to look at that really seriously.
Rather than ask for a rebuttal, I'll ask Cheryl for you to start with this question. What is your position on allocating county funds to provide public funding for county election campaigns?
That's like putting $1 aside on your taxes for presidential campaigns, and I'm not sure I agree with that either. But I think our county is strapped for so much money today that putting another budget constraint on our money, I'm not sure whether I would go there or not. I think that we have to, again, spend our money wisely, budget it out, and it may not be there, but I think we need to look at it. I'm sorry, that one caught me off guard.
And Rex?
Again, I don't think the county can take that on right now. I don't think they have the money, they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the time nor the infrastructure to do it. With that being said, with the amount of people, the amount of money raised in some of these elections, I think if a person is qualified, if they've done the job, if they've been out doing the job, they've been out in the community, they've been out performing, doing things for the community, they've proven themselves in the business world, they can run for office. And I think people will resonate behind them and want to get behind them. And I think they'll appreciate that they're doing it, and they'll appreciate that the person is running. And I think with that, you will see a limit of donations coming in, whether they're a whole bunch of $100 donations, $50 donations, some larger. Some people, volunteers, will get together and make sure that it can happen and make sure the right person does get elected. We talk about grassroots campaigns, and it's kind of funny. My wife's my campaign manager. I have a friend of over 50 years, since I was 6 years old, grew up by my dad's grocery store, helping me do a lot of my efforts on this campaign. I have no paid staff, I have no office, so I am truly grassroots, and I've been having a good time getting around and meeting the people in the 1st District, so I want to thank them.
Annette?
Having the funds allocated for campaigns by the county is not possible. It just isn't possible, not with the way the budget is right now. They had like $3 or $4 million worth of requests from each of the departments, and I think something like $132,000 to try to divvy up, or $432,000, I'm not sure that it was even that much, to divvy up between all of those departments. So that is completely out of touch. We can't do that. But the idea that it should be even put on government for them to do, I'm not comfortable with at all. It needs to be something that that people want to do, and qualifications come in many sizes, and not just the amount of the campaign's money that someone has in their coffers, but also by the experiences that they've had in life and in their educational backgrounds. So I could not begin to sponsor and feel good about sponsoring or supporting that allocation of funds out of the county.
Any rebuttal? Annette, do you believe homeless people have a right to undisturbed sleep? Why or why not? In what locations or places? How should county employees, including law enforcement, interact or not with people who are sleeping in public places?
Okay, boy, that's a loaded question, a long one. I think everyone deserves a roof over their heads, that's without saying. Some people, it's difficult to help them find roofs over their head because of their mental state. Location, let's take a look at that. In fact, someone, when I was door knocking one time, had said to me, you know, what are we going to do about the homeless population? And one of the things I had thought of is let's start taking a look at the buildings that we have available. Let's start working with Health and Human Services. Let's talk to them and let's see what kind of empty buildings we have. Maybe we can get some of our developers to donate time and materials to the effort and be able to take them off their income tax or whatever. So we can start looking at ways to bring our homeless into a facility overnight to keep them from all sorts of harm as well as the weather. County employees respond, you know, that's a two-edged sword in itself, because you don't know, you know, what you're going to be dealing with and what's going to be happening. So of course, county employees, our sheriff and our police departments, they're going there saying, okay, you know, you need to move, whatever, and you don't know what's going to erupt. So I'm not going to touch that one, because I'm not, I have far too much respect for humanity and for the police department to come to a judgment on that.
Rex?
I think adding dignity to any of the homeless is a great step in getting them off the streets. I've been fortunate the last few years to work with Betty Chin, and we were able to get some contractors, local contractors, to help build a set of showers and with a 2 sets of washers and dryers so that we could wash their clothes. We could give them, basically it's a hand up instead of a handout, and it's dignity, one shower at a time. As we sit up here tonight, there are 2 projects moving along right now that will provide quite a few beds for the homeless. One is a faith-based group, and one is another grassroots group trying to help the homeless. A lot of them, it's a lifestyle choice. They don't want they've chosen to take that path, and to deal with that is a completely different set of circumstances. But with serving meals down at the shelter at Thanksgiving and going out with Betty sometimes to hand out sandwiches, and living here my whole life for the last 50 plus years, there are a lot of people that are taking advantage of the food bank, the free meals, that weren't doing it 2 and 3 years ago. They're people you went to school with. They're people you have worked with in the past. They're people that you know, and you realize we have to address this situation. The situation in Eureka seems to be a little worse because this is the county seat, this is where the services are, this is where they seem to migrate to. So we need to address it, we need to provide some dignity for them, but it's also an issue that it's never gonna go away, but we have to correct it and corral it and work with it as much as possible, because they are our brothers and sisters out there that do need help. and they're looking for a way up and a hand up, and we need to give that to them.
And Cheryl?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you believe homeless people have a right to undisturbed sleep? Why or why not? In what locations or places? How should county employees, including law enforcement, interact or not with people who are sleeping in public places?
Thank you. I believe that, I guess it's really kind of a real harsh reality that we live in today, unfortunately. When I was growing up, people would come to our house right at 6 o'clock, and they knew it was dinner time. And, you know, that's where I came with people first, because my parents always showed the compassion. Anybody that came to the house at 6 o'clock sat down for dinner with us. Sometimes they even slept in our home because they had no place to go. I look at that, and I look at today's society where people have lost their jobs because there's no work here in Humboldt County, or for that individual. I know a person who been out of work, and he unfortunately lost his house, and he was married, he had 3 children, and we look at that, and I feel that we need to have compassion in our situation, in our living styles. Not, you know, folks are, some are not mentally stable, and they have no place to go. And I agree that we need to find places, and that one of the things that I was looking at is we have buildings that are empty. I see places there, what they call grow houses, and they should be filled with people, not with things that are not people. And we have people there, and they need a place to stay. So we need to work on those places that are filled with plants that have nothing to do with people who need a place to sleep. And I look at that, and I know that the time of the safety of them and the safety of the peace officers that are out there trying to make sure.
Any rebuttal? Rex?
Yes.
In Humboldt County, our votes are counted by electronic machines. These machines were designed and made by a private corporation. The inner workings of the machines are protected as trade secrets. Neither the machines nor the software that powers them, nor the operation manuals, are available for public inspection. Do you trust these machines? Should citizens be forced to trust these machines, or should citizens have the right to directly hand count the votes we cast?
Well, I think in the last few years, I think Carolyn's done a great job in making steps forward at the elections office, the transparency in voting, being able to look at all the votes that come through. With that being addressed, the machines are copyrighted. I think it's much like a recipe. They're not going to give out their secret. With that, they lost, 177 votes a couple years ago. Mistakes will happen, but we don't want it to happen in any election. So I think the hand count may be out of the situation, but the new machines with the transparency, being able to see the votes after they're cast, I think is probably the best way to go, and I have full faith in our elections office to have the best machines available. They've made great steps in for the handicap access, so I hope as we move forward, those votes will be counted, and they will be counted accurately.
Cheryl?
As being a poll worker out in Lolita for a couple of times, it was very interesting. We have to go to classes to look at those machines and how it's processed, and working with the individuals. You know, I was working with ladies, so we worked there together, and we had to go to class. We had to read what it was like. We would make sure that every person was checked, double checked, and they got their mail. They got their ballot. They put it in the machine. And at the end of the night, we had to sit there and count each one to make sure that we had as many people had signed in that had voted. And that was really great. And Carolyn did a great job to making sure that we understood the process. Copyrights, I can understand that. I'm not sure if we would all understand what was going on. At least I wouldn't understand what was going inside of the machine. But I take Carolyn's word and the other people who work in the elections office to make sure that we get the right things in front of us to do it correctly.
Annette?
Well, Carolyn Cernich is a one-of-a-kind woman. And when she puts her mind to something, she will, because of what she has done, we can rest assured that it will be exactly what it needs to be. It will be honest, it will be open, it will be efficient, and it will be effective. She even ended up going to MIT with what she has established here to share it with people there. So I'm looking forward to an honest, open election, and I leave it to the voter to decide who is going to be there, who is going to be the District 1 supervisor.
Any rebuttal? No. I want to remind you again, if you're viewing, to call in with questions so that we can ask the candidates your questions. Starting with Cheryl, what do you most respect about each of your opponents?
It has been fun. I want you to know that it has been fun these last 2.5 months that I have grown to know both candidates. And I look at and listen to each one. We've been spending a lot of time together, and it's kind of fun to get to know them a little bit better. And I didn't know either one until I put my hat in the ring, and it has been good. They're strong individuals who, I double did that one. Strong individuals who have a right and a love for this county that they live in. And I look at that and realize that I have the same feeling for this county, and I wish them the best.
Thank you. Annette?
Well, I have to say the same thing. Our goals, in one way, are similar in that we all want to serve, and we love where we live, and we want to do our best for them, and that's true. It's true. You know, there are things that separate us, and that's where the decisions of the voters comes in.
Rex?
I have 2 sisters who spent probably close to 65 years teaching in Eureka City Schools, so I admire Annette for her teaching. I like now that she retired, she's got involved with the community. Cheryl, with her work with all the different Indian organizations, the tribe and things she has done up there, you have to admire that. I think what I admire most is they're 2 very nice ladies, and we've run a very straightforward campaign, sticking to issues, on our records, what we've done in the community, and I think that's the best part about what both of these ladies bring to the table is their honesty and their straightforwardness and their integrity to run a good, clean campaign. And that's what I think I appreciate the most. And I think the people of the 1st District in Humboldt County probably appreciate that more than anything else, because I don't think you're going to get anywhere by being nasty in this or throwing stones or trying to make somebody what they aren't. I think it's probably better that we just run a good, clean campaign, as both these ladies have done, so I appreciate that.
Any rebuttal on that one? Annette, do you feel that community services can be as effective as additional police enforcement for helping to keep neighborhoods crime, vandalism, and gang-free? Might there be community services that are economically feasible?
Now, would you like to define community services?
No, because I didn't write the question.
Well,
As you understand community services.
Community services, as I understand it, I'm going to go to the Health and Human Services portion of community services rather than the police and fire and so forth, because right now Phil Crandall and Tom Matson from Public Works has just come to the table at the Board of Supervisors meetings last week to propose a plan to take they have one home in a particular neighborhood that they're building, and they're building another home next to it, and they're going to combine like about 7 different services for the population of that neighborhood so that they can get all of their services in one place. So from that standpoint, you'll have the elderly taken care of, the teens taken care of, you'll have parents taken care of, you'll have wives taken care of. You can work with so many different issues because it's all in the same place. Look at the problems with transportation and getting people there. Their transportation problems won't be there because they'll be right there in the neighborhood. That in itself serves as a safety valve for a lot of the issues that come down the pike as we serve this community.
Cheryl?
Would you please restate the question?
Yes, excuse me. Do you feel that community services can be as effective as additional police enforcement for helping to keep neighborhoods crime, vandalism, and gang-free? Might there be community services that are economically feasible?
It almost sounds like utopia. I think that is, I think that's a great idea, because when we look at things, our county is so far apart. And you look at the state of California and you look at other states that are really small and compact, and we're stretched out. We take up almost all of the West Coast here, and I look at it and we are trying to make sure that people get the services. And when you come in and you got to wait, makes your next appointment, you miss the next appointment because you're off doing something else. So I believe that if we can consolidate and bring things together and look at it so that we can get our services in one spot instead of running here for 20, 30 minutes and then be late. And so all of this is really important, that we do look at it and come together, because I know when you're, take an example for the reservation, we get all of our services in one spot. We don't have to go here, go there. And so it's nice to get, our health care taken care of if doctors come into our reservations and other places like that. So that's the information that I can come away with, because I understand what's going on. So it's really important that we have to come together to do all of this as a place. So I agree with Annette that consolidating, bringing together in one spot is a good place to be.
Rex?
I hear the question a different way. I think they're talking about neighborhood watches, maybe taking some of the pressure off the law enforcement, being more cost effective that way. The highly successful POP unit that was started years ago under the guidance of Merle Harpham and then brought forward in the last few years. I think the POP unit, where you get a drug house, you address it, you go to it and you take it down instead of having a whole bunch of police calls over and over and over. And then the other thing is the PSOs, the public service officers, instead of having a deputized deputy or a police officer go to a traffic accident or a disturbance call of a barking dog, whatever the case may be, you have someone else that can take the report, so you keep a deputy on the street. I think that's the way I interpret it, and I may be wrong on that, but I think what they're looking for is more community involvement to take some of the pressure off, both like the senior resource, the senior volunteer patrol, which they use and which is underwritten by a lot of different businesses. Underwrite that. You'll see their signs on their vehicles and things like that. Anything to take the pressure off the deputies so they can stay on the street addressing the actual crimes rather than being caught up in situations where they're being pulled away from actually stopping something happening on the streets. And with any of that, with any expansion of that we can make happen, I support that 100%. I support a liaison officer working with the neighborhood watch programs. Report that strange car. Take a look. Watch out for your neighbors. And again, the utopia that we talk about would be one neighbor looking out for another neighbor, looking out for another neighbor, rather than saying, yeah, I saw that truck backed up to your house loading everything up. I thought it was a friend. So that's where it comes in. Know your neighbors, know their friends, know what's going on around you.
Rebuttal? Rex, how do the candidates, each of you, feel about the First Amendment right of freedom of speech? Is it just for adults, or do minors, such as high school students and elementary students, have free speech rights?
I think it doesn't distinguish by age. So of course they have rights. With age comes wisdom, and with wisdom comes the ability to say the right things at the right time. kids say the darndest things. And I think what you need to do is you need to not bridle them back. They need to be able, they're free spirits. They need to know that they are being listened to. If they have a concern, they need to address it. But they also have to learn, and hopefully they learn this as they grow, they have to be respectful of how they present it. And as that moves along, I don't think you can limit free speech to age, but I think you need to be able to teach your children. You need to be able to teach your friends, your younger friends and stuff like that, how to make the delivery so the point gets across without it being offensive, and you still get your point across. And I think that you'd be surprised at the intelligence that will come out of a child's mouth.
Annette?
I have an answer. It's just I'm trying to formulate it in my head right now. Part of freedom of speech is everyone obviously needs the opportunity to access freedom of speech, and we do need to look at what children say because we can learn a lot from them. But by the same token, say in the classroom, as I was a teacher, that is a wonderful forum at which time children can learn what they really think, because they're under a person who's been trained to listen and to also support and help them within the classroom structure. So yes, freedom of speech for children, absolutely a must, because we have to know what they think and they have to learn how to express themselves. Now, problem comes in sometimes when they over-challenge a situation, and it needs to be corrected. So get it corrected and move it on. But children are bright. They're a wonderful challenge, and and they need to be encouraged to think for themselves and be reasonable in the prospect. Thank you.
Cheryl?
Freedom of speech. I remember growing up as a child that the old adage, so you can tell I'm a little bit older, the old adage is, children should be seen and not heard. And when I grew up with that, and then when I got older, it was, no, I have a right to talk. I have the right to say what I feel on my heart and in my brain, but it has to be tempered. Tempered meaning that we need to make sure that when we talk, that it is respectful. And looking at the different cultures that have come to make Humboldt County their home, and we look at those things, and freedom, again, is without, freedom has responsibilities to it. And talking to my grandmother when I was growing up, and she telling me, or talking to my grandfather, and they told me what it was right to talk and when to talk and not speak. And so those things, and children do have this great capacity to have compassion, but they also have the capacity to say what's on their mind if we allow them to. And so with my nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews growing up, speak what's on your mind. Tell me what's going on. I can listen. I want to hear what you have to say. May not have an answer, but I want to hear what you have to say, because always giving that child a place that is comfortable so that they can get across what they want to say.
Any rebuttal?
No.
Cheryl, what do you think about the pay gap between Humboldt County supervisors, who are very well paid, and lower level county workers, such as healthcare providers, who are paid minimum wage with no benefits?
I was asked at a union meeting if I would take a pay cut, and I said, well, I don't know. I think this might be a naivety on my part. I never asked what the Board of Supervisors got, and when the ladies talked to me and the workers talked to me in the union, and they told me, and they said, would you take a cut of $1,000 in your pay, and so that it would go into this union to make sure that they would get money for their raises, because they were only living on minimum wage, not a living wage. And I said wholeheartedly yes, and that they would take away $1,000 each month and put it into a fund so that they could give wages to their people so that they could have living wages. I know that the supervisors work hard, and I've seen Jimmy, who's worked in this position for many years, and the things that he has done and working forward. But the gap is large, and I don't know what it is for other places in Humboldt County, other places in the state of California. But I think that we need to look at that and see whether or not it is too large for this county, and looking at what it is. I have no problem in making a study on that part, because, you know, I'm just one of those people that always worked for that little money. And this is something so far out of my field, but I will work with the unions and anybody else that help make sure that we have money that is available and wisely spent on your behalf.
Annette?
Well, first of all, I don't think, and I was asked the same question, and Rex was asked the same question too, probably, at the with the AFSCME people, but I don't think that's the way it's done. First of all, the states, the feds, and the counties, they have the monies, and then the county distributes the money in the budget, and so that is where the negotiations need to take place. Perhaps the Board of Supervisors, maybe the supervisors do make more money than they should, but I do know that if that they work 24/7, and if there's an earthquake, if there's a slide, if there's anything like that, they're there in the middle of the night. And I know that they work extremely hard, and they also pay for a lot of their own transportation now, and some have refused raises and so on and so forth. So I don't think that you can really answer this question well, because even if any of us were to give up that $1,000 a month, that's $25,000 a month. How far does that go with all of those people, with all the people in that organization who are working? And yes, they should have a raise. They should have benefits. I don't want to deny them that. They should have them, because making $8 an hour is a travesty without benefits. And my cousin did this kind of work. She hurt her back. It stayed hurt for the rest of her life. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they do need to have money, but I don't think that this is the right kind of question for that.
And Rex?
I've seen the Board of Supes address this I don't know how many times. And I can't speak for the other Board of Supes. I know I've talked to Jimmy, I've talked to Virginia, Ryan. They work really hard for their money. The only thing I can guarantee you, when I'm elected on June 5th, you're going to get your money's worth. And I can guarantee that. You'll get 7 days a week, you'll get my phone number, and I'll make it work. If the Board of Supes address this, I will certainly look at it, and what the consensus of the board comes through, I would wholeheartedly. But what I can guarantee you is I will earn every penny of what it does pay.
Any rebuttal?
No.
And Rex, some neighboring counties have cut back on mental health and other services. Do you feel this puts an unfair burden on Humboldt area services? If so, what could be done about it?
You know, neighboring counties and our county, we're cutting back on everything. And sometimes it seems like we cut back on the ones who have the least amount of voice to stand up for themselves. We seem to take the easy path sometimes to make a cut. Most of those are federal and state monies that are distributed out, and then what the county has to do with that money is allocated appropriately. I've been involved with Special Olympics. I was president of Special Olympics quite a few years back. I still provide an area for them to play baseball on the weekends, and I actually provide an area. We now have started a bocce ball league for Special Olympics. So again, you have a lot of volunteers picking up the absence of dignity and services for these that are less fortunate, and it hurts me. I had a Downs brother who lived in the East Street houses, so I was very aware of what was going on there. And as services got cut back, I noticed his care because the people that he stayed with did above and beyond, but the amount of money stayed stagnant as the cost of his care increased. So it is something we have to look forward, and we have to, again, even add dignity to the people that have the unfortunate circumstance where they can't stand up and speak for themselves.
Annette?
That is a sad issue because of the fact that as they don't have the voice other people have, mentally ill people. And it is a conundrum as to what to do, especially in times that we have been facing and will continue to face for some time to come. I am very heartened in the fact that, as I had mentioned before, Phil Crandall, Dr. Crandall from Health Human Services has come together with those 7 departments, and they moved them all into one particular location, and they have saved an extraordinary amount of money. And as we begin to begin to look at more creative ways to deliver our service product for these various areas in our county, maybe we could save our money that way and be able to keep the services going.
Cheryl?
I look at it and realize that we have become a place where a haven for people who need services, and realizing that we are having money that it's not there any longer because the state is pulling back funds, the feds are pulling back funds, and now we're left with just small pockets of money. And it's a sad thing when we have entrusted our young people or those who are needing these services, and there's nothing there. And we need to look at that and make sure that we provide something, and working and collaborating with the city, the county, the state, and the feds, and making sure that we have the funds available. And it's only going to get worse before it's going to get better. And so working together and looking at these different issues and bringing it to a good conclusion of making sure that we have funds available for our young people or our disabled individuals who need these services.
What are your views on citizen advisory boards, specifically in terms of law enforcement, general plan, housing, and code enforcement? While you don't need to address each one of those are examples of citizen advisory boards. Annette?
I welcome them. I welcome them because of my work with the wind turbine situation in Ferndale and Petrolia area, and the 4 meetings that I've been to so far. Looking forward to the next one. I have found that we here in Humboldt County have some incredibly well-educated, intelligent people who would be second eyes to what is happening, i.e. the general plan or what other group that they would be on. They would be absolute manna from heaven to have these people on board as second eyes so that we can truly create the documents that make sense and, for lack of a better word, are administrated in such a way as to be a benefit for all of our citizens. So I am 100% in favor of citizen advisories.
And Rex?
The more involvement by the community, the better product you're going to end up with. I really don't think in this case too many cooks can ruin the stew. Again, the general plan, it calls for citizens advisory committees, and we've seemed to bypass that section of it. We've had a lot of meetings, but if we had the citizens advisory committees, we seem to have passed that up. In other areas, we have a lot of different boards and commissions, and what it does, an earlier question was how you could save money, and what this can do. There is a lot of people out there that would like to help make the place they live be a better place. And I think if we could utilize those people, have them come through with their ideas. There's a homeless advocacy group working through the Chamber of Commerce that is working along those lines. There are so many other little splinter groups working on things, and they get things done. They have to get things done because they're doing it on their own time. They're not getting paid, so these advisory groups work very efficiently for a whole. And I think that's probably the way it's got to go, because the more public involvement, they buy into it and they feel like they're part of it. So again, it's what needs to be done.
Next.
I believe that this is the best place to be at, to have these liaison committees coming together. And one of the reasons why is that they know their communities better than any one of us would do. And when we look at that and we bring those people in who have the abilities and the understandings and they know what's going on, why not bring in the expert of their community? And that is so good to make sure that they're there. They see what's going on. The wind farm that they want to put up on Bear River Ridge, it is good to have those citizens there, people from Petrolia, people from Ferndale, and then people who are talking about it in Fortuna and Scotia. And so we need to look at what they hear, what they see, what they are looking at, and making sure. So, you know, Law Enforcement Liaison Committee, which is working with the Human Rights Commission, those are very important. And I think it's always good to have extra eyes, because they see things that maybe the officials don't see, or the business people, or the county employees, or the directors. So it's really good to have those committees on board, because they see more than what we see on a daily basis.
Thank you. Any rebuttal to that? It's now time for closing statements, and we'll begin with Annette De Modena. You have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay. I want to thank the ACLU for hosting this forum this evening. And in my travels throughout District 1, one thing continues to stand out, and that is the concept of we's and they's. And we just can't do this any longer. The fear and mistrust that represents needs to be set aside. We need to start coming together and supporting the common goals of economic growth and stability within Humboldt County, without forgetting to be responsible for the environment. We want businesses developed in Humboldt County that will sink their roots deep here for generations to come, so our residents will have living wage jobs and benefits. I offer a new voice and a new vision to you, the voters. The theme of my campaign is collaboration and consensus, create community. I've seen it work in Lolita with their community development grant, and in the Prosperity 2012 committees, and in the business niches that they have developed. So together, let's make a difference in Humboldt County and in District 1. And I ask for your vote come June 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Seidner?
Good evening. It has been, again, a night filled with fun things. I look at it as always learning and never putting myself at a disadvantage of sitting here talking with the individuals who I'm running against, or that we are running for the same position, and listening to what they have to say. I thank the American Civil Liberties Union for this evening's forum, and I thank for the Humboldt Access for being here and televising it. I look at all these things and realizing that we have the voice. I want to be the voice for the powerless, people who don't feel that they have been disenfranchised, and working with them, and the homeless, and the union workers who need wages, higher wages, living wages, working to bring more development of jobs in business and industry. We look at these things, and I look at it, and this has been my home for all of my life. And Humboldt County has been here, my family has been here, and I look at for the next 7 generations to come. And looking at those things, I was tribal chair for 12 years, and with that, I led a government, and I wanted to offer my leadership to you this evening. And looking at everyone deserves a voice in government, and I believe that I will give that voice to you. I hope to have you, hope to see you on June 5th.
Next phone.
Again, I want to thank the Redwood chapter of the ACLU and the Humboldt Sentinel and Humboldt Access for this forum tonight. And as I've said before, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Jimmy Smith for his 12 years of service, his wife Jackie for putting up with those 12 years of service, those long hours and all those meetings. with that, I'm not going to do anything different than I've done my last 50 years in Humboldt County. I'm going to serve the community. I'm going to get results. I'm going to do things for the community. I'm going to make you proud to live in Humboldt County. I have created jobs. I will create jobs. I will make a conduit. As a supervisor, you're not going to create jobs, but you can sure create an environment that has jobs. Once we have a working population, a lot of our troubles go away, and I can make it happen. I have made it happen, and I look forward to being your next 1st District Supervisor. I want to thank Annette and Cheryl for running a great campaign again. That means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to you people out there to see a good, clean campaign, and it can be done in Humboldt County. So again, I want to thank the people of the 1st District. I want to thank the people of Humboldt County, and I look forward to your support on June 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank each of you, Rex Bone, Cheryl Seidner, and Annette Dana, for participating in the Supervisor Candidates Debate on Civil Liberties for the candidates for the District 1 seat on the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors, sponsored by the Redwood Chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union and held on Friday, May 25th at the Community Media Center of Access Humboldt, located on the Eureka High School campus. Again, I'd like to thank Greg Allen, Park Bostrom, Steve Bredenbaugh, and Peter Martin, all board members of the Redwood ACLU, for staffing this debate. I'd also like to again thank Charles Douglas, Gabrielle Fellows, Kristen Corns, and David Girazzo of the Humboldt Sentinel for their help to make this production possible. Remember to vote on June 5th, 2012 for the candidate of your choice. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Candidates Debate on Civil Liberties for the candidates for Humboldt County Supervisor, 1st District, here at the Access Humboldt Community Media Center in Eureka. This debate was moderated by Christina Albright and staffed by other board members of the Redwood Chapter of the ACLU, which represents hundreds of members across Del Norte, Humboldt, Western Trinity, and Northern Mendocino counties, standing up for the civil rights of all the people on California's North Coast. We encourage you to look into all the candidates and make an informed decision on Tuesday, June 5th, Election Day. For more information on where your polling place is, contact the Humboldt County Elections Office at co.humboldt.ca.us/election. And for more information on the Redwood Chapter ACLU, find our website at redwoodaclu.blogspot.com. This debate was produced by the Humboldt Sentinel